Hello, guys, and welcome to our first episode of coming at Coast to Coast, a casual look at tabletop games. You know, as I said that, I actually realized that kind of sounds a little sketchy. Like a casual, it's like that casual mail store, you know what I mean? You been there?
No.
Anyway,
to be honest.
Anyway, I'm Steven, and
I'm, of course, Zach.
And that's Zach, and the format of this show is going to be a little bit interesting. I don't really know that we truly know what it is. But we just wanted to give a shot to just kind of sit here and discuss like we do in a normal everyday store environment with raucous crowds that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
The normal crowd.
Coast2Coast.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about, you know, normal things, just what's on our mind. Maybe not necessarily the most relevant things, not the most new things, but things that we just have been thinking about as we play these games and love them. So. We prepared some questions, right?
We did.
That is ultimately the format, I guess, is that we have 3 questions each. We prepare to ask the other person.
The other person does not know the questions.
Not at all. I don't even really know what kind of questions to expect because we just had 3 questions, so it's like that could be any number of things.
I think this will be indicative of the kind of people we are.
Yeah, for sure.
So my questions are going to be hilarious.
All right. Well, do you want to kick it off with the first question?
Yeah, I'll start. All right, so I want to
start. Is there anything on your mind, first of all, just like in general, big picture, that isn't in question form? You just played a game of Infinity.
I did.
How'd that go?
It went really well. Turns out Achilles is really good if they don't have a hacker.
So what's up? Why does everybody keep failing to Achilles? What's up? Like, is he just good? Really?
Well, he doesn't look like much. And then you walk into him and all of your models are dead.
Maybe it's because they're walking into Achilles. That's the problem.
It's true.
Anyway, hit me with that first question.
All right, first question. Recently we unboxed Fire and Ice, the latest chapter for Game of Thrones
that's
LCG.
True. I have some cards here in front of me.
You do. And I have a quote. A couple of quotes, actually.
Did you quote me from the video?
I did. This is silly to me, says Steven. In response, Robert says, I don't understand how this doesn't get restricted extremely quickly.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Steven responds, how does this even push the game forward? And pause, ends in disgust.
Wait, was that like Aster? Was that like actually like I made a disgusting face or something?
You went, oh. And you were just doing this too, like that.
I did a lot of hand facing.
So of course we are talking about
face handing?
Ellaria Sand, the card.
I've heard about this card, yeah.
I'm not trying to trick you.
Yeah.
My first question is, do you still agree with your statements from a couple of days ago?
Okay.
And if so, what do you have to back up the disgust that I saw in that video?
What do you guys think about Ellaria Sand? Ultimately, can we have an emote in terms of applaud if you like Ellaria Sand. Ultimately,
no Martell players.
That is what I have. That is the proof that I have.
But there are no Martell players here.
That's true.
That's not fair.
I want to play Martell, but I would never.
And most of them aren't even. Some of them aren't even Game of Thrones players. So how do they know? Okay, well here let me make a case.
Do we want to say what she does first?
Yeah, go ahead and make me hate it once again. I haven't looked at it since.
She's a 3-cost unique Martell character. 3 strength. She's a lady. She's a bastard. That just has to be done. She has an intrigue and a power icon. House Martell only.
She has stealth.
And while it's summer, Ellaria Sand gains. Response. After an opponent plays or puts a character into play, Ellaria Sand claims 2 power if that player controls more characters than you. Limit 3 times a phase.
3 times per phase. All right, so let's start it off as we usually do, right? 3 cost, 2 icons, 3 strength.
And stealth. Not bad.
Already we're here. We've got a character here, interesting character. So let's look at the ability. I think the ability obviously is the key issue here, right?
All right.
So I don't know. I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say that Game of Thrones is ultimately a game about challenges, right?
That is usually what the game involves.
You've got a character, like the most prevalent thing on that character are the giant icons and the strength, right? I mean, this is what makes the meat of Game of Thrones.
Right.
So far, we have not seen since, I guess, way back in the day, a characterless deck. It's not even really a possibility. So, like, this game is about characters battling it out on the field, right? Wouldn't you think that?
Wasn't there a characterless deck that like made a run in the regional season?
I think so, yeah, for a little bit of time.
Just saying,
but
put it out there. Well, go ahead.
When I say characterless deck, you're not like, oh, that sounds great. I'd love to play against that.
No,
You're
that
probably
sounds really
thinking,
fun.
Kaiser.
Yeah, Kaiser. That's
I think more importantly, the game isn't about challenges; it's about characters.
Yes, it is about characters. Fair enough. Although that's going to come back to bite me.
Gotcha.
You're Socratic method there. So Ellaria Sand does a couple of things. One, she can put your opponent in a position where they literally cannot play any more characters or they lose, which makes it really hard to catch up, right? So you have this grand struggle in Game of Thrones. It's this back and forth going on. Like, you've had games where you get to 14 power and you lose those games, right?
I have lost 14 power games.
And those are the games that you remember. Those are the epic level games, of stories. That's what we talk about after the regional season. We get together at Kilkenny's and it's like, I lost at 14 power. So it takes that away. And more than that, like, let's say you're at 11, 10 power. Not unreasonable for a rushy Martell deck. You drop Ellaria out. And, the Martells thrive on not having as many characters as you do, but still doing just fine.
Yep.
They also thrive on losing challenges and then coming back and winning, and you're like, how does that happen? But so they're taking one of their biggest maybe equalizers, which is they have really, I would say, incredible characters like the Red Viper, the Viper's Bannerman, like anything with a Viper in it, pretty much.
Or related to the Viper.
Fantastic characters. But, they have to pay a lot for them. They're not usually the strongest at economy. They're not like the Lannisters with tons of gold and stuff, or as you would perceive the Lannisters. That's not always how they are. And so now their biggest weakness, which is very few characters, but a lot of goods for those characters, is more or less neutered by Ellaria Sand, who is a great character in her own right. Slots right into pretty much any Martell deck with stealth. She's even gets past Balin's Host, lost to Oasis, like the whole thing happens. And then you can potentially gain 6 power just straight up. Yep. Straight up, just because your opponent decided to play some characters. So if you get to a pretty decent amount of power and I can't play characters anymore, how does that make the game fun for anybody? Is the ultimate question. So, like, Game of Thrones is a game. Like, we play these tabletop games because we love them. We want to play them. We want to have a good time. And I'm just thinking, I'm staring at this board, and, like, this is immediately an unfun experience for me. As I said, this is not a negative play experience. It's a no-play experience. It's like, I can't do anything here. I can't play my dudes. Like, I've got these really cool dudes that I decided to put in my deck. I can't play them now. And I guess my ultimate question, like I said, is just push the game forward. Like, what does this open up with the game space? I feel like this is a mechanic, this is an effect that was put in just because it hadn't been seen before, not because it was going to add anything to the game. That is my ultimate case.
So you're still not a fan?
Oh, no. No. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of King Robert's Host, where you can't do power challenges. That also takes away an aspect of the game that doesn't need to be taken away.
So your argument
Don't like Shadow's Cat for that reason.
It's not that it's too good.
Correct.
It's that it shouldn't exist.
Yeah, why does it exist? What possibly does this add to the Game of Thrones when it comes to making a fun and good game? Like,
do you think it'll be a problem?
I don't know. Ultimately, it would be a huge problem in Melee. It's a disaster in Melee, just across the board. You have a friend across the table. Oh, I play 3 cards. You're gonna win. Like, there you go. Enjoy that. Like that's Melee already struggles in a competitive environment. That is like, who's not playing Ellaria Sand? Like, how do you not play Ellaria Sand in Melee now? How do you not do that?
It's true. I don't want to talk about Melee.
You get to 9 power, and it's like, oh, my friend wants me to win. Here's 3 characters. It's like, that's awful. And that'll be done. Like, we've seen Melee shenanigans to an absurd level already. You're just handing it to him. It's like, here you go, DC.
So, do you think in an environment where she exists, because she does currently exist, unrestricted, unmodified, just straight up, how important is seasonal control?
Well, very. But it's interesting, man, because Song of Ice and Song of Fire are so weird right now. I have so much to say about these things. Like,
let's hear it.
So what Song of Fire and Song of Ice do, you no longer have summer or winter builds that aren't using those agendas, in my opinion. Like, are you going to walk into a Worlds event knowing full well that a quarter to a half of your deck is rendered useless because you come across that one agenda that is going to screw you every time? Like, you've got I've got a Winter Wildlings deck, played it against Song of Fire, and it's like, oh yeah, half my cards don't work because I can't make it winter. Like, why can't I make it winter? Like, come on, and that's another effect that's just, anyway. So you have Song of Ice, Song of Fire. Essentially, the meta is now focused on, if you want to play winter, you play Song of Ice. If you want to play summer, you play Song of Fire. Or everyone just agrees to not play either, and you can go back to the old ways. But that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen at all. Those agendas are way too good looking.
It's not going to happen. So the ability to keep your opponent from making it summer is important, right? But then the ability to keep your opponent from making it winner because you're going to be running Song of Fire is important. So it really plays into the seasonal dynamic. But what I don't like is when you have these two agendas going off against each other, you don't have a summer deck versus a winter deck. And like my summer effects are hitting, your winter effects are hitting. We're having to balance for the seasons and struggle with the birds and stuff, which is kind of cool, right?
Sure.
Instead now it's like, both of us have just completely GIMP decks now. That it's just like, I can't do my thing, you can't do your thing, so we're going to play essentially what comes down to a core set style match where it's
That's
like,
part of the risk of running seasons, though, right?
Myself. Well, it is, but I mean, does that risk need to be there? That your cards just don't work? Like, it's one thing if I can play, a bird, right, and then you can kill my bird because you won a challenge with a carrion, or because you played a white raven on top of it. That seems right. Like, it's like, well, I had to put these cards in my deck to cancel it. You didn't. Now it's just an agenda. It's like I'm making a summer Raiders deck, and I only have that agenda just because it's like I'm guaranteed that no one's gonna make it winner on me, and there'll be no shenanigans.
Unless they're running
Song of Ice. Unless they're running Song of Ice, in which case some of my summer stuff gets turned off, but it's like that's not the point of the deck really. Like there's 9 summer cards, maybe 8, and they're not that essential, right? So it's like a preventative agenda, but it's also, if you get summer effects out of it, it's great. I don't know, I actually think the summer one's stronger, which is weird.
The summer agenda?
Yeah, the effect isn't stronger, but like
the cards? How
you can slot it into the game seems to me like winter is just such a staple for Greyjoy, such a staple for some I will say Stark builds that like winter, and that you just shut it off. It's like boom, you can't play winter cards. That's great against Greyjoy, by the way, in case
Noted.
You guys didn't know that. Which we've talked about taking a choke out of the game, which is great. Like let's get choke out of the game. Like I'm a Greyjoy player, and choke is
so.
lame.
Do you think choke is out of the game?
No, probably not. Ultimately,
yeah, I don't think
but
so
it's
either.
close. I mean, if you can't use Ice Fisherman, Wintertime Marauders, that kind of stuff, like you're gonna lose.
But I mean, couldn't you just run Song of Ice and then play winter with Greyjoy choke?
Unless you're playing Song of Fire, because if you come up with a Song of Fire deck, you are going to lose that match. You're gonna lose. Because Ice Fisherman isn't lighting the world on fire when it's not winter. Wintertime Marauders.
He shouldn't be lighting the world on fire.
3 strength, War Crest. Anyway.
Gotcha. Well, that's.
Well, what do you think about the agendas?
The agendas?
Yeah. Song of Ice, Song of Fire. We talked about Dothraki Summer a little bit.
I think they're fine.
What do you think about Laughing Storm, Song of Ice?
I don't like Laughing Storm ever. Never.
Restrict him. Immediately.
To me, I would agree on the King Robert's Host that doesn't let you do a power challenge, and similarly with Laughing Storm, they can still intrigue challenge, but it's almost like turning off intrigue.
I mean, why is it not during the challenges phase? You can't have cards discarded.
It'd be better.
Like, it's like, that makes perfect sense. Again, it's a challenges game, but now it's like Laughing Storm is just the tool that you use to break everything.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You just have to kill him.
Yeah.
Just burn him.
Burn players say as much.
So, no, I think that the season agendas definitely, at worst, they've made people start playing seasons again.
Yeah, but why did they restrict the old ones? How is that even relevant at all?
I mean, we can go down this hole for a while.
I don't get it. So is that acceptable for Ellaria?
That's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we conducted an online poll. It was determined that a no-play experience was not worse than a negative play experience.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess technically the semantics say that it would it would not be as bad. Right? $0 in your bank account is better than negative 50, right?
It's true.
You would say.
Well, depends on what you did with that 50.
I've got a question for you, Zach. I'll take the second question here.
All right, hit me.
A couple of weeks ago, we sat down and we played some Star Wars.
Oh, boy.
So my question is, how did it feel to get completely destroyed by me in Star Wars? And is it a trend that you expect to continue?
Coast to coast.
Oh boy. It's really strange, right? So it is strange that you beat me, but it's strange because going into Gen Con, like that whole. I remember I played against Grant about 1,000,000 times. We had a late night playtesting session. Hollywood. And I don't really remember beating Grant that night.
That's very few of us remember that, actually.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make here is then we go to nationals. Grant actually makes it to the finals, which makes sense. And I made top 16, had a really great day. Only dropped 2 games the entire day, which was great. But the thing I'm getting to is...
I must be really good then.
It is really good. During all those playtesting sessions, you're playing in a very different manner than when you're in a tournament. So you're keeping different things, you're trying different strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So we played at the very beginning of a Saturday, which was early on in my day. And it was... Hold on. Let me finish. So, it's also the day and a half after a pack came out.
True.
So I had 6 objectives I'd never used in my deck. You were running your amazing trooper deck, which just took me by storm. So, I mean, I don't expect the trend to continue. If we run into each other in a tournament, we'll see what happens.
We did, actually, you know.
When did we do that?
Last Wednesday. No, Tuesday. You won those games, by the way.
Oh.
Or we tied, you remember? Because I think both of our dark sides won. I remember you had you destroyed 3 objectives in one turn, and then we switched it over, and you remember that?
I do
Yeah.
remember that, actually. So that's the trend I continue to expect, the tie.
The
true
tie.
draw.
Well, that actually is an important part of the next question because it's a legitimate question. I'm going to go right into it.
You're going to your second question.
Yeah, I'm going to go right into it because the question is orbital bombardment the best card in Star Wars? I want you to think about that for a second. Just think about that for a second.
The best.
The best card in Star Wars. Orbital bombardment.
Define best.
Well, I was hoping you'd do that, but
I can. Well, there's multiple versions of best.
ultimately, here's the way that I'm looking at it. Orbital bombardment opens up a door to the dark side that can really so far only truly be opened by orbital bombardment. You
Is
know
it
what
because
I
I
mean?
played it and destroyed 3 objectives?
That may have had something to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's like you think the dial's cruising along at 5, 6, and as the light side, you're like, well, I can definitely go all out here, get an objective down, get 1 up or 2 up on the dark side, and then I'm good to go. And then they drop orbital bombardment, and you lose. So as far as putting a card down and changing the game drastically, I would say I haven't seen anything that really comes close to that.
I would say I agree that orbital bombardment is one of the best cards in the game. But at the same time,
Too conditional. At
my
first.
problem with orbital bombardment is you should see it coming.
What?
No, listen.
How is that?
No, all right. So here's the deal, right? It costs 4.
Yeah.
So the turn I play it, I have to spend 4 on that. And let's just say I'm having a fantastic day and I've got 9 resources.
Yeah.
So now I've got 5 left. If I've got 5 left, I'm maybe playing 2 or 3 guys. So if you look across at my board and you make the decision to go all out,
Right.
and I've got 7 dudes on the board, especially when you've seen Imperial Command as one of my objectives.
Well, what else are you going to do, right?
You don't go all out.
Well, light side doesn't just... It's like I can't objective damage you away from attacking me. You know what I mean?
But I mean, you don't have to go all out when the Death Star dies at 6. It's not like the game's about to end.
It's like, what am I going to block with, red 3 or something? It's like, if I block, then I'm going to do nothing, and you're still going to get the objective. It's not like the light side decks are typically packing 1 to 2 unit damage on the dudes.
I will tell you, if you have dudes standing in that instance, I probably don't even play orbital bombardment.
No way.
I'm not gonna go all out because I go out and then you drop in 3 ships and win the game. I've seen that happen too. So I don't think it's the best card in the game because I think once it's happened to you, you play around with it a little bit more, which is maybe makes it really powerful because you have to play around it. But not to go into that, I think that the best card in the game, and I've said this for a very long time, I actually usually call it the most important card in the game, but I'm going to go ahead and call it the best, which is Twist of Fate. Hands down, to me, has the most impact on any game. A well-timed Twist of Fate wins you the game every time.
We'll seal the game on it.
Yeah.
That is, that's a reasonable counter. I
And,
guess.
hey, it's both a light and a dark side card.
It does give it some points as well. Huh. I don't know.
I think it's the most impacting. That's That's my opinion.
Fair
Orbital
enough.
bombardment can in the right moment, but you draw an orbital bombardment on turn 1.
That's what I always do. That's all that I
and
ever do with that.
It's like I have Darth Vader and an orbital bombardment.
That's all.
I'm gonna play nothing.
It's exactly like a Netrunner. Whenever it's like turn 5, and you draw like 3 successful demonstrations, and you're like, great. You know, he's got Crypsis with a counter. He's never gonna not break ice ever again.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Chuck
So
'em.
orbital bombardment at the right time, really good. But I will almost always take a Twist of Fate, no matter what point of the game it is, early, late, whenever. I always want it.
Do it on the light side?
I guess that's true.
Even on the light side.
The light side can maybe be even more kind of scary with it. Disastrous.
Well, it depends on your deck. If you care about winning edge battles, then yes, of course. But some light side decks don't. I'm going to swing if you block. It doesn't matter.
It's easy as a light side, not care about edge battles.
Somebody online just said, Zach, you need to quit playing it safe. It's those kinds of decisions that cause you to lose to Graham.
I don't know, man. Grant's
Math.
good at this game. He's good in a lot of games.
He's good.
He's out there. He's
Pretty
right
much
there.
every
We're
game.
looking at him.
Every game.
You know Grant's moving to Texas?
I do. It's sad.
Yeah.
You good on that?
That was my third question.
Did you know Chris moving to Texas? Yep. All right.
Hit me with something here.
So it's been
Is that me?
Yeah. Please.
Go home.
it's been a notion, especially since Gen Con going around in the Netrunner community, that the Atman is maybe
The universal.
a candidate to be restricted, or one of the first restricted cards in Netrunner, or dealt with, or something. Now, I recently heard Tim saying, yeah, they're going to have to deal with Atman. And, you know, I would consider Tim a good Netrunner player. So my question to you is, in response to that, you said, no, it's not that good. I've totally got this figured out.
I said that?
You said that, word for word.
When did I say that? Was that before Atman came out?
So my question is, that was a couple weeks ago. So maybe your opinion's changed. What are your thoughts on Atman, and do you think it needs dealt with, or do you have the answer? And if so, what is the answer?
So, I think I can go 60-40 against Atman. A good Atman deck, a good Atman player. I think I can
Seems
go
good.
60-40. It is good, but the problem with it is that the counter for me to Atman pushes the game further away from, I think, where a lot of people want Netrunner to be, including myself, which is the most ludicrously fast NBN fast advanced deck that you can build. Right?
So you basically outgun it.
It's going to lose against a lot of things, but like first turn, it's trying to store that Astro script, like right off the bat, because you don't have to worry about inside job hardly ever from the Shapers, right? And they'll usually, they'll play their professional contacts and get their thing. You score your Astro script, and like you might leave R&D and HQ open. Like sometimes that's the thing you just got to do, because you got to get the agenda out. If you score that first Astro script, you're just drawing to find the second one. That's your game.
Why do you want the second one? 3
anonymous tips, Jackson Howard, draw. Because then you got your next Astro script, play, advance, score it. Now you're at 4 points. Now at this point, you have 3 breaking newses, and 3 Beals, and then 1 other Astro script, and then there's other things you can have in the deck. But any of those at that moment are like 1 away from victory. So breaking news, you draw, you can immediately score it. Project Beal, you draw, you can immediately score it. So it gives you 2 great options to just end the game immediately. Atman's not fast usually. I mean, they're like some of the games we recorded that Denny was doing, he got his stuff out quick. But some of that was a lot of anomaly, I would say, as compared to what it usually is. Now
that we've talked about your potential answer.
Yeah, so
what's the answer to the question?
NBN Fast Advance can do it. It can beat it, but it beats it just by not playing Netrunner, right? It beats it by just drawing, scoring agenda. There's no psychology. There's no like, ooh, I'm going to bluff this server or whatnot. None of that. Ultimately there are ways, right? Certain pieces of ice like Toll Booth, Hadrian's can give it issues, but there are answers, there are FIM. I think ultimately it comes down to a few roto turrets. I'm even running some Chimeras now because Atman at 1 is pretty common. Atman at 0 sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. A lot of players will see like the ice wall. You'll show them some 1 or 2 strength ice early on, like Enigmas or whatnot, and then they'll put Atman at 1. A well-timed roto turret is massive. Another thing, like for NBN, which is good, is scoring breaking news and trashing stuff, or C-source trashing stuff. If you can get rid of their professional contacts, if you can close accounts, like the deck doesn't have a lot of money in it. It's not a rich deck. So there are ways to do it, but it doesn't need a lot of money too.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's one of those things that it's just a steamroll once it gets set up. Complete steamroll. And I think that we're going to see things in the next 3 to 4 packs that help to deal with viruses. We already saw the neutral event where you can clear virus counters single action. Like, that'll help. Then you can potentially set up a hard-to-penetrate server on HQ, R&D, and archives, clear all the virus counters. The problem is, usually when you try to do that, you want to set your ice and then clear, but you can't. Because you have to take your whole turn. So you got to set ice, and then it's like, all right, you got to face the onslaught of them running your R&D and winning the game. And then next turn, you're like, I'll clear the virus counters. But so there are options, and maybe we see some assets in the future that are like I like ideas like if this asset is up, like you can't put virus counters on something, or you can. I call it Norton, like the Norton program, where it's like
No virus.
or McAfee, like virus, whatever. So like it comes up and it's like you can't spin virus counters, you can't place virus counters, something like that. Where you have to deal with this server now before you can deal with something else. Or even, I'm talking about agendas, like you score an agenda and it has like a trace, initiate trace like 3, and then trash a virus program or something like that. Kind of like a researcher data pool for viruses. Again, like a Dr. Norton's kind of antivirus software, right?
Sure.
So I could see that kind of
Dr.
stuff.
Norton.
I could see that kind of stuff happening. Where it is now, it's just so strong. It's super strong. But it has bad draws too. Not a lot of them, because they search everything out. But it has bad draws.
It's got like a 1 in 10 chance of having a bad draw.
Come back to your question. Doesn't it need to be restricted? I just don't want to see anything restricted until it just has to be. But the truth is that playing against Atman is boring. It's unfun, as Grant said it best. I saw Grant at the end of a tournament was just like not interested in Netrunner anymore at all, because he had played against nothing but Atman. And it's like, oh yes, I get it. You play this, you play your self-modifying code, then any ice that I res, you immediately begin Atman at that strength and break it and get to my agenda. It's like, I get it. It's not that fun. So I do not like that it does that, that it hurts the game in that way. But I don't know. Is it worth restricting? I would rather see it done through cards than through, lists that restrict things. And I think there's answers now. I think Glacier can maybe do it. Can Glacier do it?
Glacier does it pretty well, yeah.
Glacier does it okay. Like Glacier. What's that?
It's a troubleshooter.
Yeah, corporate troubleshooter. Good one for it. Especially on like a big Ichi or like a big Rototerra that they can't get through. If you trash those Atmans, it slows it down tremendously, and it's such a good feeling. It's so good. So yeah, I guess that'd be my answer. I would be.
You don't want to see it restricted.
I would be reluctant to restrict it right now. Now, Data Sucker is an issue. It's just so good. For one, it's just so good. Desperado is really good.
So is Data Sucker the issue?
Well, if Data Sucker is the issue, you have to restrict Data Sucker and Atman together, because otherwise the deck doesn't change at all, right? Data Sucker is an issue. The economy of the card is just so ludicrous, right? It's one cost.
It is indeed.
And all you have to do is do something that you're going to be doing throughout the entire game, and you essentially are netting 1 credit, but it's even better than 1 credit, really, because you can lower ice and do things like kill it with parasites.
Because sometimes a credit can't even get you.
No.
What you need.
Can't get you what you need, with Anarch Icebreakers especially. So, I don't know. I would prefer not to be restricted, but I don't know.
You also wouldn't mind it?
Maybe it needs to be. Worlds is going to look crazy.
What's going to look green?
It's going to look, well, I don't know. I think it will look green, actually. I think that's true. Which is kind of a bummer, but there are ways around it. Like I said, I think let's just be creative and look at some cards that maybe we haven't looked at. Like, I would never have, well, I would have, but I would not usually have splashed Rototerra, but at 0 strength, it all of a sudden is very appealing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Why not?
Unless I start earning a Darwin, in which case I'm screwed. But then all of Netrunner, I think, is taking a giant gasp at that point. So who knows? Is that it?
I have one more question.
What do you think about Atman?
Atman?
Yeah.
That's not how I like to play.
Yeah.
I've played Shaper from the beginning, and even for me, like, I played Shaper weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was very aggressive.
Right.
And it's like...
Aggressive
I know,
Shaper. Classic.
I know Rick early on built this, like, Shaper rig deck. Hey, Rick. He built a Shaper rig deck that, once it got set up, it was just kind of like...
A rig deck? That's what every deck is.
Well, Not
So
necessarily.
you just run all the good icebreakers, basically.
It's not what a criminal deck is.
No, you're right.
And that's most decks.
It was, not anymore.
Anyways, so set up the regular thing, and I was always just like, no, I just want to run. Like, from the beginning,
I'm the
straight
same
at
way,
him.
man.
So, like, Atman to me is sort of like slow, like, I'm going to get set up, and then you can't do anything about it. It's not how I play.
Yeah.
I just like to kill you really
I'm with
fast.
you. I do the same thing. Like, I'll build a noise deck, and it's like, noise is great. And then it's like, but I'm going to face check everything because I'm an aggressive player, and then I lose every time. So,
But you had a good time.
yeah, that's why I run Wizard. Because it's like, well, if you're not running noise, you're running Wizard.
Well, I'm glad to know that.
All right, well, you want me to give you one?
Yeah. As long as it's not making fun of me.
It's not making fun of you, but I am going to call you out on something.
Oh, man.
We got through, speaking of unboxing, you caught me on this early with Ellaria. We got through an unboxing with Slaver's Bay in it. And all of us were just like, yeah, it's a pretty good card. That's okay. It's pretty cool. And I looked at this card again, and I'm like, this card is bananas. You know why? Because, first of all, I didn't realize this card stayed in play the entire game. It doesn't go back to the discard pile like all the other effects that we assumed worked like this. Because in my brain, it was like, oh, yes, you get it, and then it goes back in, and it's like, that's not great. You get this forever, Zach. This is a character you can steal any non-unique character from any opponent's discard pile forever. It's yours. You understand that? That's insane. And you've got to win a power challenge. And guess what Targ has?
Tricons.
Heir to the Iron Throne.
And power challenges.
2 power challenges.
Okay.
2 power challenges. So you
I'm
could
listening.
essentially... That could just be ludicrous to me. That you could win 2 power challenges, take 2 non-uniques from their discard pile, put them into play, and you could do that like every turn. And nobody can keep up with that.
Freeze it.
Starks freeze it. All right, so
Yeah, true power, right? So this is a thing, especially in melee.
what's your question? Sorry, I almost cut you off, and then I was like, wait, what's his question?
Zach, comma.
All right.
How did you allow Slaver's Bay to go unnoticed in our unboxing, given that you are a resident Targaryen player?
I let it go unnoticed because it's not that great. But I want to make a comment. I want to make a comment. No. I was fully warmed up for this one. So the problem with this card, you even said it, right? Heir to the Iron Throne. Number one, it's a 2-cost unique location.
Yes.
So if you're not House of Dreaming this, you can't really build a deck around this.
You're on 3 of them, man.
All right, you can.
Building season.
But you've got a 2-cost unique location that doesn't do anything until they have non-uniques in their discard pile.
That's true.
I'm a fan of killing things, not discarding them. But that being said, you mentioned Heir to the Iron Throne.
Oh, that's true. No intrigue challenge, right?
That's not necessarily true, which is what I'm going to get to. I've actually,
Interesting.
for the longest time, been obsessed with Heir to the Iron Throne. It just never works.
Yeah.
So
Like Greyjoy
then I go back
Homer.
to Burn. But I have been playing with the deck because the agenda says at the beginning of the game you either give up military or intrigue. And everyone always assumes that you give up intrigue.
Right.
But I've been working on a deck that you give up military.
Conceptually working on, right?
Well, I have a list. I don't have like a
Oh,
deck
dang,
together
You got a
yet.
real list.
Yes, I have an actual list. Actually, I have a folder on my desktop called Air, which is my Air deck ideas folder. Anyways,
That was
not to
AIR.
go into that.
Wait, go into that because somebody online is asking, would you run Heirs to the Iron Throne with Song of Ice out with Slaver's Bay?
Heir to the Iron Throne and Song of Ice can't be run together.
Oh, that's right.
First of all, they're both agendas.
No, I like to play legally. So in this case, because the problem here is you need non-uniques in the discard pile.
Yes, that is ultimately the issue.
So if you run it with air and then you give up intrigue, that doesn't work because you need to be hitting them with intrigue challenges. But secondly, there are ways to even, one, you don't give up intrigue, but two, you could run Threat from the North, which discards, so you reduce their strength and discard a whole bunch.
I'm just saying Pale Mare, man.
Yeah.
Huh?
But are you really going to put plots in your deck built around a unique location that you're not going to run 3 of in your deck? Like,
I wanted to be right on this one,
it
but I don't think I am.
So for me, it definitely is a powerful effect, and it's worth looking at. And I think you could build a deck that has it in it, but I don't think there's a deck built around it. And if it does trigger, it could be awesome. I'm picturing like you're playing as a Martell player with orphans, and it's like I'm going to keep getting that orphan back every time I win a power challenge. That's mean.
That's pretty cool. It's as mean as when they do it to us.
Except it's infinite.
Except for it's every turn.
I don't know. I have not, back when Orphan was not restricted, I don't know of a single game that didn't have an Orphan out every single turn, whether by Princess plans or just them drawing more orphans.
So, to let you know why I let it slide
man.
by in the video, to answer your question, I think it's because it's a B-/C level card. It can definitely be used, but it's not like...
That probably explains why I like it so much. I like to stick
Yeah,
around.
right there in the second tier.
To C level. Yeah. I do like that. So overall, maybe you're ultimately right. But do you have the guy, or is it Baratheon has the guy you can chuck to do a power challenge, additional power challenge?
I do not have that guy.
Correct.
I would
Is
love
there
to have
an
that guy.
alliance deck there? Baratheons love the power challenge.
They do.
Well, you can't alliance in air though. Is the problem?
Right. But like, if you did a Targ alliance, can that be done? Can Targ be done?
I mean,
Oh wait, alliance can be done with anybody.
yeah, I can.
I was thinking the.
Baratheons are gonna win power challenges anyway.
Yeah, I know. But,
Why wouldn't you
Mind
just
was blown.
why wouldn't you just splash the location?
you're not gonna pay 4 for it. Come on, Rick. You're not gonna pay 4 for that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to make your case for you. I don't know what I'm doing. It's a bad card.
That's why the alliance is worthwhile. I think ultimately, I think the Targaryens have a lot of winning and power challenge effects. This is a deck in the making right here, by the way. It's gonna win worlds.
Kaiser will make it.
Guys are. It is not janky enough for guys. It involves winning challenges and playing the game.
You want to try to make a point
Well,
more?
no.
Or can I-
While we're here, can I just talk about something real quick?
You can. We're here.
I want to talk about all these Greyjoy cards that are discarding cards from somebody's deck. I hate them.
So I have a question, Steven. How do you feel about all the cards that discard things?
Is that your actual question?
No, I'm lying.
Okay.
No, not at all.
But I'll just say my real quick thing. I wanted to actually bring these out as examples to my Ellaria Sand example. Okay. Or
Are you
your
gonna talk about-
Ellaria Sand
Are you
question.
gonna talk about why these aren't good?
No. Damper's drowned, 1 cost, awesome dude, goes to 2 strength, slots Grey into a holy deck.
Great hair.
Yeah. Great hair.
Look at him.
Well, it probably gets washed commonly, actually.
Yeah.
They're probably always in the water. Has a holy crest, got the naval enhancement on the intrigue. So anyway, the reason this character exists is because the Greyjoy holy theme is awful right now. The characters are just bad. Really.
He's not.
They're awful, guys.
Was that bad?
You've
This was A.
I mean, that's kind of the exception. I mean, you have Makoro, who's pretty good. You have Aaron Dampier, who's a guy with stealth, and he doesn't kneel, which is good. Victarion 4 strength with renown is cool. But then you get into the non-uniques, right? Which is really where the holy deck lies. You look at Baratheon, and it's like, if I have this guy, all my guys have plus 70 strength. And if I win dominance, I draw 3 cards and gain 6 power. But the Greyjoys, it's like, you can discard the top 3 cards.
I was gonna say you can discard cards from your deck.
Or I can kneel 8 influence and cancel all challenges for the rest of the thing. It's like, I don't think I even can get that much influence in a deck for Greyjoy. I don't even think I have that many cards. I've run
That's
all the
fantastic.
neutrals, and it's like it's not doing anything for me. So they have some real, and Damon, I'm gonna blame Damon squarely for this. Put
it on him.
I was talking about that holy deck at Gen Con last year, and he's like, "Don't worry, there are things coming." And it was like, he's like, "Have you seen the next pack?" And I'm like, "No." And it's like, it's the drowned god dude, who he's a 2 cost, like 1 strength military icon, and in melee he can steal a gold from somebody. It's like, yes.
There's the answer.
The holy theme is complete. But that's not all. We also have a dude who is another chud, like 1 strength, military icon. Again,
Sounds fantastic.
Power of faith gives them the military. Quit giving holy guys the military icon. Unless they're going to be tricons like this guy, which is okay. But no, and then it's like, if you win an unopposed challenge, he gains a power icon. Lighting the world on fire, right? Isn't that great? Can
If you win a
imagine?
challenge, unopposed.
But anyway, this guy is useful, right? He actually adds something to the game. This is interesting.
What did that have to do with this card?
Well, we'll get there. Balin Greyjoy also adds something to the game, kind of a new way to play Balin.
All right. To play Balin.
He's interesting. I mean, you give him renown. He's a noble. You could have a winter noble deck that might be cool now. Plus 2 strength to everything, more locations. But at least it's not just dumb, right? This is a thing you might actually have fun with, play. Longship Great Kraken. ultimately, this card does add something to the game,
Mhm.
right? It's a new way to play if you want to discard cards in the dominance phase.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
One cost unique. Discard the dominance.
So here's the thing: the discarding theme is cool when it.
Dude, what about an alliance with Slaver's Bay?
Now we're getting somewhere.
Boom.
Yeah, now we're getting somewhere.
Magic just happened.
But the problem with the discard theme.
All these unique locations that do it, yeah.
Problem with the discard theme is that you have to win challenges, also, and it just so happens that everything that discards cards from your opponent's deck is awful, down the line bad.
All right.
But the discarding theme is cool when it's around, like Supporter Salt Cliff and Kraken Tattoo, and like you're discarding to power like your guys and make them cooler, right? Make them awesome, and so they can win challenges with Intimidate and various things, which is great. So discarding during those phases is cool. Supporter Salt Cliff, discard to stand a character. Now, tell me how any of that is useful in the dominance phase. Can you tell me that?
Nope.
None of it. Not a single thing. So the only reason that this is good is to essentially deck your opponent. Like, that's the whole idea. And maybe it's possible now. Like, I hope it's not, because really, I mean, again, can we get back to what is Game of Thrones about? It's probably not about who can run their opponent out of deck fast enough. It's more about challenging and using these effects to like power the challenges and characters and stuff. So this guy, I don't want it. I don't want this at all. Like, this is not. If the Greyjoy focus group had been polled on whether or not they wanted this card, I guarantee you, 98% of them would have said no. Give us anything. Anything else.
But this.
Anything else. Maybe a summer card. I don't know. Maybe.
Question from online: do you think that for a Greyjoy player, choke is still their best option?
It depends. Song of Fire is gonna I don't know, because like I came up against Song of Fire and I just was done. Like, and it was a wildling choke deck, right? I mean, it had some chokey stuff. It didn't revolve around choke, but it was just done. I don't think it is. I don't think Greyjoy choke is the answer these days. TBH.
What would you put in its place?
I think the Greyjoys do a lot of things well. I think they raise claim really well, just kind of like the Starks do. I think they actually have a cool summer theme. Like I said, I've been playing around with summer all of my Game of Thrones life, and it's really cool. Got the King's Roads now that help that. I think you just play the game the Greyjoys want to play, which is Intimidate, horribly underused right now. That keyword is bonkers. Win any challenge you want, whenever you want.
I agree.
Like, Naval Escorts to boost strength. Like, it's old school Greyjoy. It's destroy your opponent. Leave no mercy. Die by the sword. Price of war. Newly made lords. Give them no locations. Like, and now with all the location neely stuff, it's so good. You get Theon. You get Gorold out there. Maybe some Captain of the Iron Fleet. Even like, not Dry Season, but the, what's the one, Attack from the Sea, which is Greyjoy themed, right? I had a lot of success with that in certain Greyjoy decks, but you have to think differently. You have to not revolve around all Neely like warship locations. It's a different deck, but
Sure.
I think there are themes within Greyjoy that need to be exploited. That are not. Greyjoy Black Sails is massively good. It's too hard for me to think, so I don't play Black Sails.
I don't like shuffling that
I don't want to
deck.
have to go think about what card I need to go get right now, because that's a good way to stress yourself out.
It's true.
I mean, if I'm playing like 9 games at Worlds or something, it's like I don't want to have to make that decision over and over again.
Every game.
And then be like, oh, that was the wrong decision. And then like be like, I'm horrible at this. So that's my take. Horn of Dragons, by the way. More
I hate
Horn of
that card.
Dragons.
I hate that card.
More Horn of Dragons. +4 strength is great for 2. I mean, that's massive.
Yep.
On Balin, and then they play a dragon or something.
It's an unfortunate situation.
It's really fun.
All right, are you
but
off
anyway,
your,
all that to say, these
your
all
boat?
added things to the game. Ellaria added nothing. Nothing to the game.
Those all added things to the game?
Yeah.
Hey, it added something to the restricted.
Added something to the game, right? Like, it's a new way to do different things.
There is just more choke.
They just happen to be terrible.
It's just a different kind of choke.
Character choke.
But it's like it's not even.
That's what Martell's best at.
They can't play characters. It's like if you had a Netrunner asset that said from now on you can't play
As
cards.
a Greyjoy player, you don't get to tell like. Are you kidding me? Like,
No, choke is awful. I agree with that. Choke is
it's
awful.
exactly the same. You can't play your characters.
But you at least have the illusion of being able to do something. Like,
No goal.
In Greyjoy, you don't. You literally can't play it. At least you if you feel like playing a character and giving the other person power, you still can. Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, the problem there with choke is with Ellaria, you have to have more characters to even have that restriction. Whereas with choke, you can have nothing on the board and still not be able to play anything because you have 0 gold.
It's true. I agree that choke is also bad.
But at least we agree.
But what if I told you, like, so in the deck building process, you have to have choke in your head. You have to, like, you've got to have ways around it. Whether that's, I mean, people have been spiking their economies hard around here, and that's great. Because like by
economy spike.
By turn 3 or 4, like if you have 2 to 3 gold locations, like Greyjoy, unless it's absolutely just 100% a choke deck, it cannot overcome like having those economy locations. Baratheon is screwing it up so hard right now with recycling Seat of Powers, with all that recursion that they've got now. So I think you can definitely build around choke a little bit. I don't know what you do to build around Ellaria Sand, right?
You just kill it, dude.
I'm gonna run less characters, or no, that doesn't make any sense.
Just kidding. Well, I mean, it's sort of like with, I mean, Barrack. You could just run Milk of the Poppies or
Totally.
Blanker or Nightmare. Who doesn't run Nightmares right now? I mean, Maesters.
You gotta run Nightmares.
So, point being, there's already things in a lot of people's decks that
You can
deal
cover.
with her, and
Yeah.
it has to be summer,
Yeah.
and you have to have more characters in them, and you have to be playing characters.
But maybe maybe this is the ultimate thing. It's like a bad effect, no matter how many conditions are attached to it, is still a bad effect.
I'm not
Like
voting for
like
it.
King Robert's Host is a bad effect.
I hate that card.
And it's like, yeah, it has to be standing, but like. That's even if it has to be standing. It has to be winter. You have to have 16 cards in your hand, and you have to take your friend out to dinner in order for it to work. It would still be a bad effect. Like there's no reason for that to be a possibility in this game that I can't do a challenge type. That's. I think that's.
Stark, I can't make room for distraction.
Yeah. Starks can't run distraction.
So
Nothing about the Starks is distracting. Also, like the theme of Stark, there's no distraction. It's like, hey, we're gonna come march on your stuff. That's what we're gonna do. Like, there's no fooling you at all.
You ready for the finale?
Yeah, hit me with the third question.
All right. So this question is not related to a specific game,
Uh-oh.
and hopefully you cannot be negative about it, like your Greyjoy.
I love being negative.
There's been a lot
Makes
of
for good
comments.
television.
There's been a lot of comments on YouTube videos and just in general. The X-Wing National or North American Championship videos went up. Netrunner. There's been a lot of debate on judges and their roles in
Absolutely.
tournaments.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
So I want to ask you, what is the appropriate role of a judge at a tournament, and where are the borders at as far as when they should say something, when they shouldn't, and how involved they should be in the general events of the day outside just managing the tournament and answering questions?
So it's kind of a sticky situation ultimately, but to me, it's I guess it's more obvious to me that if you're playing in a tournament, let's say you play 9 rounds and you've played all these games without a judge watching, right? This is an agreement between 2 players. You guys are playing the game. You have an opponent there who can easily see everything that you're doing, and if they can't, they ask you to like slow down, which I had to do at Gen Con. And you have yourself, and both these parties are fallible, but I think the onus of responsibility for game rules, illegal game states, etc., is on the players themselves, right? If you're playing somebody and you don't notice that they've screwed up, and they don't notice that they've screwed up, I think that's ultimately your fault. And I think you have to run it 2 ways. Either a judge is watching every single game you're playing throughout the day,
Which is impossible.
That's impossible, but it provides a standard of how you got to the finals in the first place, as opposed to you played a certain way all the way up to the finals, and now you have a babysitter. And it's like, I don't think that that's the role of a judge. I think if there's a rules dispute, you call a judge over. If there's any shady business going on, you ask a judge to come over, watch, clarify. If you think they're stalling, the judge is there whenever you notice a problem and you need it solved.
But you have to notice it.
You have to notice it. I don't think the judge is there to be over your shoulder saying, you forgot that data sucker token. Like, your opponent may have forgotten that data sucker token all day. Like, and that's important. Like, that's how they've been playing all day. You don't change the parameters because it's a final, right?
Sure.
I would think you would want as accurate a representation of what everybody has been doing throughout the entire tournament for a final match than having a perfectly played game. Like, that's not, we all know, like, half of these games is catching those kinds of mistakes. Like, you have to pay attention. You have to have the awareness of the game table. So I would say no. I would say I don't think a judge should jump in on a final just because it's a final match. Like, what do you think? Is that?
I totally agree. There were a lot of comments saying I can't believe the judge didn't say something about this or about that. And for me, like, if it was my opponent making the mistake and I didn't catch it in the finals, thinking a judge would hop in and say something, like, I wouldn't even want that as the beneficiary of that moment. So for me, a judge is there to answer questions and to make sure no fishy business is going on, which is different. No Monty flips. So outside that, no, I mean, I don't think, I think a judge should be very uninvolved in the process of the game, other than enjoying watching it firsthand.
Have you ever tried that flip, by the way?
100 times.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced it wasn't intentional, unless we have all been fooled.
the Grand Moff Dennis is full.
Yeah.
Anyone out there think a judge should correct those mistakes in a final?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Hey, come up here and give us a. Come on up.
Right up. You fell for it.
Right in the middle, Bradley.
Yeah.
Everybody, this is Bradley.
This is Bradley. Welcome.
Local.
I love being the dissent.
So let's talk about the judge.
Okay.
So why is it that the judge should jump in on these kinds of things?
In a perfect world, those mistakes wouldn't happen. They wouldn't occur at all.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So, in a perfect game, that's not, those little slip-ups, those little mistakes, the little triggers that are missed, that are mandatory, happen.
Mm-hmm.
Online, like if you ever play like MTGO or there's a bunch of other stuff.
Octagon's the
Octagon.
popular one.
Octagon doesn't have rules.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have the.
That's right.
I know Magic the Gathering Online does. Right, you
Yeah.
can't do illegal things.
Right. It just
So,
won't let you have
yeah.
it. In that case, like, that's the game in its purest form. It's like meant to be. Like, that's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that's how the cards were designed to interact, and
Right.
so you're getting an accurate representation of this game.
Exactly. And so I think that in general, like, if there is a mandatory trigger, let's just use that as a for instance, because like a data sucker token, is that a mandatory trigger?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
It's after you make it. I think it's passive. Yeah.
terrible at Netrunner, so.
It's passive for sure.
Okay. So we'll use that as a for instance. If you forget it and your opponent forgets it, it's difficult to say that your opponent actually forgot it. And so you're missing your trigger, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's possible that your opponent did catch it.
Right.
And he's just maximizing his potential.
Right.
Well, of course, that's not fair, right?
There's an argument there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard. We've had this discussion before, and actually, I think I landed more on your side of it last time.
Well,
And are you landing on the other side now?
You may get me back over.
Sweet.
As
Excellent.
a pretty good example, last year in our Game of Thrones regional, the first half of it was melee, and in the top table, everyone was undefeated. One of the guys, Philip, actually got to 14 power, and then during dominance realized that a guy had renown.
No, it was the opposing titles.
Oh yeah, the
He
opposing
had won a
title.
challenge against someone of the opposing titles. Would have won him the game.
Would have won in the game, and ultimately the regional.
Yes.
Because he ended up going undefeated in Joust.
He went
or something,
second, yeah,
or second,
got
or
second.
whatever. So, in that case, I think he should have lost because he didn't realize that was happening. So it's like he would have won unintentionally. Like he was making a move, not even knowing he was going to win.
Mhm.
And it's like that's not. I think the onus should be on him to.
I would love to comment on what you just said, but I have no idea what you
Well,
meant.
hey, let's
So
put it-
I don't play that game.
Let's
so-
put it this way. I mean, this
Yeah.
is we'll go back to the oldest game of all time, chess. Maybe not the oldest. Might call it's pretty old. But
It's a big statement.
if you put the
Fact
king
check.
in check and you don't realize it, you don't say check.
Mhm.
Should there be any kind of Is there any kind of a punishment for that? Is there any kind of a because you didn't realize how good of a move you were making?
But the difference is, if this is the finals of like a grandmaster level championship, do you think there's a judge telling them how to play?
Right. Correct. There's not.
Like, that's my point. If you're in the finals or at top level of any scene, I mean, if we're playing a casual tournament or a weekly tournament here, and I'm playing and you see something, it's like, I'm not going to be offended by it. But if
Mhm.
I've played 10 hours and I get to the finals of a very important moment in my life, and a judge steps up and says, no, he claims a power there, when neither of us caught it, like, I feel like it's 2 versus 1, like, you have an extra person helping you
So-
play, kind of.
Bradley, you got.
Well, first of all, what my point would be is that in the case that you have two grandmasters of chess and they're playing each other and they miss the check, let's just hypothetically put that in the realm of things that could happen.
Hey, they're fallible.
They're human beings.
Sort of.
But if you have two computers playing,
No. Honestly, somebody's going to hop in and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Does nobody realize that this
You
is...
think someone would hop in?
Absolutely.
Two grandmasters playing.
maybe more.
No.
No, they
No
wouldn't.
way.
They wouldn't hop
Absolutely.
in. But like, if let's say that I move a
But
knight,
that would never
moment
happen.
someone
That's
tries
the
to
other
make a
issue.
move that they can't make because he's in
Let-
check, like the moment he tries to do
let-
something else,
They would absolutely.
somebody
Yeah.
would say,
yeah,
"What
you
the hell's
can't.
going
That's
on?"
actually a rule of chess, right?
Yeah.
You can't move where the king
No.
would be in check. Yeah.
So no, it absolutely is.
But what if that happened, right? Or what if, easier example, what if two people are playing and the knight moves 3 and 1, rather than, or is it 3 and 1?
Are we playing against like an 8-year-old in this instance?
Let's say it moves like 4 and 2. Like the knight moves in a bigger L than it should have, or something screwed up. Like, let's say nobody catches that, and it's a Grandmaster game. And then we come back, and it's like, okay, we're reviewing this game. All these games get logged, and it's like, this is how Grandmasters play. And you catch that game, you're immediately going to say, this game does not count. Like, it's illegal. Everything's wrong here. Like, I think you would wash that game away completely.
There's nothing to learn
at
from
that point. Yeah, there's nothing. That game is invalid completely. But are we willing to say that, for instance, better example in Thrones, what was it, 2 seasons ago, the top 8, whenever I played Captain of the Iron Fleet on a non-unique character, and ended up winning that game
Against me?
against you. Yeah, which was an illegal move.
Or when you catch. Well,
Would you say that it's your fault for not catching that?
I absolutely blame myself. And in that same game, you have the locations that get discarded if you don't have any Greyjoy characters. I didn't catch that either.
You have less score, right?
I 100% blame that loss on me.
Is the game invalid though? I would consider that game invalid. Like, that's not an accurate representation.
Here's the interjection from online. Most of everybody online is thinking that a judge should correct mistakes involving passive game conditions, but not responsive.
Not responsive,
What do you guys
yeah.
think about that?
Right.
I mean, that makes
No,
sense. That's
you-
a voluntary trigger, but
I think.
The problem is FFG being afraid of the word may in every single one of their game lines.
yeah,
Well,
totally.
I think it's
Yeah.
not even. So
Then it becomes on the player.
in chess, you don't have passives, right?
Right.
In chess, the examples we're giving are illegal moves, which is probably another consideration because if it's a passive or something I should have triggered, it's one thing to miss that. It's another thing to do a second power challenge when you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
To do something completely out of the
or
rules.
like 5 actions in Netrunner or something.
Yeah, like that is. Look at you, Tim.
Where's Tim?
So, and that may warrant a little bit of discussion. There is a difference to me between not catching a passive or whatever and doing an illegal move in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if my
What-
opponent doesn't kneel the Red Viper, or if he kneels the Red Viper to attack when he shouldn't, and I don't call him on it, that's cheating.
Yeah,
And
technically.
that should be ruled upon.
But
especially in final.
But I mean, you can't babysit your opponent.
For every single game.
But we're going to be honest about this. I mean, we're not going to say anything.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you say that part of, like, specifically Game of Thrones is to capitalize on your opponent's mistakes?
I mean-
it's like, oh, they shouldn't have done this. Whoops.
At
You're
a
not
cer-
going to pay the price. The high price.
It's true. I mean, at a
High price.
I guess at a certain point, like, we have to ask ourselves where, I guess, is catching triggers and passes and being in board awareness, game awareness, is that considered part of a skill set for playing this game?
Absolutely.
I think that's, you think that is?
That's absolutely part of every game.
What do you think, Brad?
I agree that that's part of the skill set that you need in order to play at all.
Mhm.
I mean, if you can't accurately keep track of a game state, you're gonna not be able to play the game.
Sure.
But that being said, when it comes down to it, you can't have 5 downs in football. You can't make illegal plays. If you miss a trigger that's mandatory, a judge needs to point it out.
It should technically happen.
Yeah.
The game says it should happen.
Would you say that
I'm-
in a tournament, endurance and the ability to keep concentration at the end of the day is also part of the match, though?
That's an interesting.
That's what I was gonna like. Does it change whenever you have a Fantasy Flight 10-hour tournament?
Well, I think the strongest argument for it is just like you don't change the conditions, you don't change the parameters of a game just because it's a finals match, right? You don't have referees in the 4th quarter and not in the 1st quarter. Like if you're gonna do it, you got to do it across every game
Well,
that's played.
but could you make an argument to say that an accurate representation is how they're because you want to do the first top whatever, the first Swiss tournament, and then if you want to have them be playing at that level, you're gonna have a judge to keep them because they're exhausted and they're fatigued.
No. I don't buy that for a second.
I was just
No.
trying to give you the argument.
Yeah, it's reasonable, but I don't think so.
Takesy backsies in a final.
Takesy backsies are not allowed, Scott. No takesy backsies.
They're not allowed in a final. They're not allowed in a weekly game night. They're not allowed in a casual game.
They're not allowed in anything.
No.
Not deck building or anything. You can't take back.
Unless you're under like 15 games of playing. You just shouldn't do it. I mean, you just shouldn't.
Does anyone else have anything to add productively about playing passives or
Well,
whatnot?
I want to acknowledge your point about how there's not referees only in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But you got to think about it like this. That's only because they know that they need to invest the money and are having referees the entire game.
Sure.
If the world were perfect, maybe we're playing Netrunner and there is a judge at every table. And
If it's that big, right?
Yeah, there you
But
go.
I think to me,
cash money to everyone and
cash. The problem for me is
nationally
that
televised.
even if it was possible, is tabletop games for me are about sitting down across the table from another human and participating in a game with that person. The problem I have is that you introduce a third person, and now it's a very drastically different experience.
You
feel
don't like
someone's-
three-ways.
No.
It's not.
Okay, well that's all I needed to know.
But my point is,
Thanks, man.
introducing a judge at every game, or even in the finals, like I don't like the idea. I'm not a big guy of rules, but I don't like the idea of someone like having an overlord of the game watching down. It's like, and it's just like, get away! I'm playing a game. We got this. We're in the finals for a reason. Similarly, I don't think. I mean, you don't
Such
need
a
to.
capitalist, man. It's unbelievable.
Is it really
I don't want
unbelievable?
anybody coming in here and telling me what to do or how. Anyway, so that's it. So I mean, I think there's a case to be made for a pure game state that should be enforced because the parameters of the game, the rules of the game say that this has to happen. These two people say we don't care, we didn't catch it. The ref says, the game says that this has to happen. Like it's essentially a program that is running, and it's going to run no matter if anybody's aware of it or not. So, in that case, you can make a case.
Maybe it's a state where you should ask both players to agree.
I mean, it's just. I feel like you're taking part of the point of the game out, where it's like, if you have a dude watching very specifically catch things, it's like I don't really have to stress about remembering pieces of the game. It's like, oh, I made a run. I don't have to check if data sucker happened because
Desperado, that kind of stuff.
yeah, it's like, oh, they're like, oh yeah, data sucker happens. It's like that's not. I mean, there's something wrong about it. I don't know what it is.
So you feel like that ability, that preparation and knowledge, understanding, is essential. Like it's a piece of being a good player.
I think
Like
so.
you have deck building, you have what you're doing, what you're playing, where you're running, and Netrunner, stuff like that. But actually, a big piece of this also is awareness of the game, and that's most people would.
Well,
most people
for
would
me,
agree
it's
with
just a
that?
matter of playing the game. Like, I don't know. If you forget data sucker,
Oops.
So, but
Scott, what do you got?
Well, is that one of the things that's part of the passive state, or like the data sucker? We're not playing Netrunner, but like, is that?
It's like a passive thing that happens. Like if an objective says after you refresh, put a shield on something.
And
like
that's part of the game. Like it's not like a reaction thing.
right. It's not bold. It's not a reaction.
So
at all.
then, do you think then, Zach? Do you think then that like maybe you could do a thing like with the finals where there's preset like penalties for missing stuff?
Ooh,
that you
penalties.
Just, like, lose. Like I don't know play Star Wars, but like if you were Dark Side and you're playing LCG and you in your finals and you make a mistake like that, like a Mahdi twist.
The Mahdi twist.
Then like Death Star dial clicks down one or something like that that's unique to your position.
Yeah.
That would be a penalty. And
So we could introduce penalties for.
now we're getting somewhere.
We could have flag throwing
Those
refs.
are the parts of
Seriously.
things that would be in official floor rules.
Yeah.
If these mistakes were made, these kinds of penalties would happen. Whether you reset the turn, whether it's a game loss, whether it's
Yeah, because I mean,
depends on how egregious.
What
the
you got?
strikes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what you think about. Matt earlier said something about FFG not liking May.
May,
So
yeah.
true. So do you think that the game, any of these games we're talking about, would lose something if you took away passives and made everything a sort of reactive remembering thing?
I can't think of any way that hurts a game, honestly. I really don't know why there's a difference between passives and responses.
I hate passives. Let's just. I hate passives.
Except for stuff that's like everything in one tables, like -1, -1, or something you can easily factor into the math. Everything should be a May. You should be able to miss those triggers.
Bradley, what do you got?
I disagree.
Spoken like a true noob.
What's the advantage of passives here?
Okay, the advantage of passives, I mean, other than restriction-free creativity.
Something about not using your brain.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It has to do with situations where, like, a passive effect is normally beneficial. An opponent can manipulate the game state to where a passive effect that's going
hurting
to
you.
happen can be actually a negative.
Technically.
That's true.
Like, where like, you have to draw a card, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to kill my guy because it's going to force you to draw a card, and that's going to deck you, and you're going to lose the game.
That is, they do add that. That is a point.
That is a potential benefit of a passive.
There's a potential benefit.
Mainly the things that have triggers.
But
It's all the
yeah.
things that you're talking
is
about.
totally.
is that
Totally.
benefit worth all the hassle of all these disputes?
But that's the catch. If it's something that's going to benefit that player, he should be the one that is.
Maybe both players can trigger, you know?
And I've got a trigger off that's going to hurt you.
Yeah, maybe
It's
both
really
players can
difficult,
trigger.
though,
What's
to
wrong with
monitor
that?
I mean, like, given the
You know it's really difficult to monitor?
Not
Every
playing the
play.
game.
All right, Zach, so let's bring it back around. What are you, the final stance? Passives, that whole
Get the
thing?
judges out
It's just
of
get
here.
the judges out of here.
They're a reference, not a guideline.
I think I ultimately agree, only because it's not universally done across a tournament format. I think if you want to have a perfect game in the finals, you have to have perfect games leading up to the finals. Otherwise, you're just not getting the same view that you should be getting from that final match. You're not getting a true representation of what these players did to get there. You know what I mean?
I do.
Okay.
I agree 100%. So
So is that it? Is that all we got tonight?
that's all I got.
Seems like. All right. Well, what's that?
Well then.
You good? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you guys out there. We really appreciate it. Cheers. Coast to Coast. It's been our first broadcast of Covenant Coast to Coast. We hope to make this a more regular thing. We'll find out how we're going to do that and get that scheduled and see how that goes. Thank you guys for watching and being a part of this and for everything you guys do for us. Zach and I truly appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.